Hello, and thank you for joining me for Storytime with Mr. C. I am Mr. C, and if you have been here before, welcome back. If this is the first time you've tuned in, welcome to the show. If you like what you hear, please go check out my first 12 episodes. Here on Storytime with Mr. C, I will be sharing stories that I have written, or a friend or family member has written, or maybe even something you have written. If you would like for me to share one of your stories here on Storytime with Mr. C, get your story or stories ready to go and shoot me an email at storytimewithmisterc@gmail.com. I have also put that email down in the description for you. For now, I'm going to ask that you please keep those stories to a maximum of 2,000 words, and please, for now, keep them family-friendly. And maybe, just maybe, I will share some of your stories in future episodes. As always, I gotta shout out a big thank you to my buddy Russ for helping me out with my intro music. Russ is the bassist for local band Drive By High Five. If you get the opportunity to check them out here in Tucson, please do so. Also, as always, a big, huge thank you to Ben over at Chasing the Whimsy. You can find the link to his podcast down in the description. Please go check that out and show Ben some love as well. Thank you, Ben, for your continued support, sir. I appreciate it big time. For this, our 13th episode, I will be sharing the next chapter from my stories about my father, which, as of now, is also the final chapter from Father Alan. There's always a chance that I might write some more of these in the future, but for now, that's it, folks. And I feel this is a rather fitting chapter to help lead us into the month of October, as it is all about Halloween. Then we will move on to a whole month of spooky stories for October, and then in November, I will start sharing some of the stories written by my mother, her mother, and even her mother's mother. And remember, please let all your people know that along with finding Mr. C here on Spotify, you can also find my stories on Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, and YouTube Music. All right, folks, enough babbling. Here we go with episode 13. Stand by.
Storytime with Mr. C.
Storytime.
Thank you once again for joining me for this episode of Storytime with Mr. C. This is the 12th and currently final chapter in my collection of stories I wrote about my father. This is All Hallows Eve from Father Alan. I have always loved Halloween. How it smells, how it feels, dressing up and seeing all the other fantastic costumes. It is my all-time favoriteest holiday, and I think it should be recognized as a federal holiday. Businesses and schools should be closed for 3 days. I mean, I know it will never happen, but a man can dream. Halloween was also a favorite time of year for my father. He would come home from the barbershop with a pumpkin under each arm and a smile on his face. He would let me and my sister draw goofy stuff on the soon-to-be jack-o'-lanterns, and then he would go at them with a kitchen knife, doing his best to keep our designs somewhat intact. A candle would go inside, and they would be put on display outside our front door. Often they would sit out there until they started to cave in on themselves as they turned lovely shades of green and black. A small collection of records would come out and take turns spinning away on the family phonograph. Songs like The Monster Mash, I Put a Spell on You, and, of course, Sheb Wooley's classic Purple People Eater would play over and over for the entirety of October. The best record, though, was the one that featured a colorful jacket covered with all sorts of monsters and creepy critters. Frankenstein's monster lumbered his way across the front while Dracula perched atop a castle in the background. There was a witch and a werewolf and bats and so much more. It was like a Halloween version of Where's Waldo, only so much better. The jacket also boasted that this particular LP was blood-curdling, and you could go mad in the haunted house. Sounds to Make You Shiver was its name, and it was glorious. You can still find it out there in the wild, and I highly suggest you pick up a copy for yourself. I always looked forward to the Halloween specials that played on television. Most years we would get to see something new, but it would not have been Halloween without our annual viewings of such classics as Fat Albert's Halloween Special, Bugs Bunny's Howloween Special, It's the Great Pumpkin Charlie Brown, and Disney's Halloween Treat, which included the Skeleton Dance and a favorite of mine, The Legend of Sleepy Hollow. The elementary school that we all went to that was just up at the end of our street would also play Halloween-themed films in their cafeteria for those last few evenings leading up to Halloween, and that was always a good time. A proper Halloween costume was mandatory for the season, and there were many over the years. My sister and I were often left to our own devices when it came to getting ourselves gussied up, but our father would occasionally help us out by taking us to the drugstore and spending a few bucks on something wacky. Some of my amazing Halloween costumes included a Dungeons & Dragons style dwarf that I crafted from just stuff we had laying around the house. One year I was a black cat, and I know I was a zombie at least 2 years in a row. A favorite of mine was the year that I discovered the face. The face was a 3D makeup kit that was made up of super thin prosthetics that you could glue to your own face and then paint. The box even claimed that it comes to life on your own face. I had found that they had a skeleton kit, and while it actually turned out to be a bunch of crap, I still was able to turn it into a pretty sweet Grim Reaper costume. The best costumes, though, were the ones that Mom helped us out with. She would even help some of my friends. My best friend Dove wanted to be a mummy one year, and because my mom was a nurse, she was able to obtain a whole pile of ace bandages. It took forever to wrap Dove in all of the bandages, but once he was done, we ventured out for some rockin' trick-or-treat action. Unfortunately, it didn't take long for the mummy to start unraveling, and by the end of the night, Dove was left in his shorts and a t-shirt, 1 or 2 pathetic bandages still clinging to his body and dragging behind him, the remainder stuffed in his candy bag. My fondest costume memory has to be from Halloween of 1980. The Empire Strikes Back had just been released in May, and I was already completely obsessed with the whole Star Wars phenomena. And zany zappers were a thing. I saw a commercial for these novelty glasses, and I knew they would be perfect for a Jawa costume. Now, if you have no idea what a Jawa is, you are probably a horrible person, and you should go find out. Either way, zany zappers were plastic sunglasses that had a single red light-emitting diode in the middle of each lens. You plugged in a 9-volt battery and then flashed the diodes by pushing a button. I expressed to my father that I desperately needed a pair of these things, and he always loved gadgets, so it was a pretty easy sell. My mom worked her magic and made me a super awesome brown hooded robe. I crafted a little cardboard blaster. We stretched a black stocking cap over my head and face, and the zany zappers were the finishing touch. I was a Jawa, and people were going to give me a stupid amount of candy, which they did. My not-so-fond costume memory has to be from the year of the werewolf. I had acquired a latex werewolf mask from somewhere, and I thought it was just about the coolest thing ever. I had big plans for the mask, and I was going to be the most incredible werewolf the inhabitants of Tucson had ever seen. I explained to my mom that I needed to shred a shirt and a pair of pants because no good werewolf would be seen in nice, tidy clothes. As everyone knows, clothes shredding is a necessary part of the transformation process, along with lots of screaming and howling. Well, my mom was not having it. There was absolutely no way she was going to let me ruin a perfectly good set of clothes. And this threw a rather sizable monkey wrench into the middle of my otherwise perfect plan. Can I just tear up some of my old clothes that I don't like as much? Absolutely not. Can I tear up some of my sister's clothes? No. Some of my father's clothes? Hell no. How about we just buy some clothes for me to tear up? We are not spending money on clothes that you are just going to ruin. Then what am I, as a werewolf, supposed to do? I'll make you something. Now, as everybody knows, this is not the thing you ever wanted to hear from your parent when you were asking for a very specific something. Cheeseburgers made at home were never going to be as good as McDonald's. You could not replicate a Pizza Hut pizza in your own kitchen, and a homemade werewolf ensemble was not going to be anywhere near as awesome as store-bought clothing that I had destroyed myself. I had no idea how this was going to go bad, but it was going to go bad. I stalked my mom as she pulled a small pile of light blue fabric from the closet. It was the wrong color. She cut 2 big T-shaped pieces. It was the wrong shape. She threw the 2 pieces on the sewing machine and stitched them together. Oh, it was all wrong. She turned the newly crafted garment right side out and handed it to me. Here you go, she said. A werewolf shirt. I was not impressed, but at least I could tear it apart now. So I grabbed a pair of Mom's scissors and I headed for the backyard. What are you doing? She asked, her brow furrowing. Well, I gotta go tear it up now, I explained. Oh, no you don't. I just made that for you. But a werewolf has to have a torn-up shirt, I answered, nearly at my wit's end. Here, give it to me. She took the shirt from me, dug through her sewing stuff, and pulled out a pair of those weird scissors that look like they have teeth. She carefully trimmed along all the edges of the werewolf shirt and then handed it back to me. There. Now it's a werewolf shirt. I stood staring at the subpar costume piece with its perfectly symmetrical zigzag edges and knew that arguing would get me nowhere. My mom had made it for me, and I was stuck with it. Can I at least put some blood on it? Don't you dare. When Halloween arrived, I donned my wicked cool werewolf mask and my wicked lame werewolf shirt. I was still dissatisfied with the outcome, so I grabbed a weapon from the little set of knight's armor that I had recently outgrown. It was a bright orange plastic medieval mace, and I have no idea why I thought it would make my werewolf costume any better, but I needed to carry it around for the evening. I was the grumpiest little mace-wielding werewolf as we trekked up to the elementary school for the festivities. And as the night wore on, I discovered that latex masks get really hot, so I tore it off, stopped wearing it. And then I lost my bright orange mace somewhere at some point, so I basically became the pissed-off kid dressed up in the weird blue shirt. Worst Halloween ever. Above all these other Halloween memories, there is still one that stands out above all the rest. It was Halloween of 1979, and my sister and I were making our trick-or-treating rounds with my father. I don't have any memory of our costumes or anything else, but what I do remember was that a furry little creature began stalking us. We were nearing the end of our candy-collecting circuit and started heading home for the night, and the furry little thing followed us all the while. We would catch glimpses of the creature as we walked, but it wasn't until we reached our carport that we really got a good look at the beast. She was sleek and black, with big green eyes, and her long tail whipped back and forth as she wove in and out betwixt our legs. Her purrs seemed to indicate that she considered us as acceptable humans, and as soon as we opened the kitchen door, she pranced inside as though she owned the place. And just like that, we had a cat. We named the furball Midnight, as it seemed an appropriate name for a black cat who appeared on Halloween night. She quickly became a part of the family, but she was never forced to stay. She came and went via the kitchen window as often as she wanted, and while she always came back, she eventually had to leave us for the final time in December of '81. She had been sick for a while, was losing weight, and spent more time just sleeping. So we took her to the vet, and she was diagnosed with feline leukemia. It wasn't long before she succumbed to her illness, and just a few days after my sister's 13th birthday, a couple weeks before Christmas, Midnight passed away. She was wrapped in a blue beach towel, along with some treats and signs of affection, and she was buried in our backyard just below my bedroom window, where she still rests. I'm still a huge fan of Halloween. I still love all the smells and feels and sights, and I still dig dressing up. And now I really enjoy making costumes for my own kids. And my wife and I even made it so that we get to celebrate our wedding anniversary every year on October 31st. But that's a story for another time. Once again, thank you so much for joining me for this 13th episode of Storytime with Mr. C. That was All Hallows Eve from Father Allen, my collection of stories about my father. And that's it for Father Allen, folks, at least for now. Next week, we will start off our month of spooky stories, the first of which will be available Sunday, October 5th. The plan is then to follow that up with 3 additional weeks of spooky stories, and then we will start our Stories of the Matriarchs on Sunday, November 2nd. So stay tuned for all of that goodness. In the meantime, send me some new material, folks. Please send me some stuff to read. And go check out Ben's podcast, Chasing the Whimsy. Thanks again for hanging out and listening to my story. Hope you come on back for the next one. Until then, take care. Be safe.